Good evening. Welcome to the 2017 Fall Forum. We're very excited to have you joining with us tonight. We plan to have a student panel where we've had some excellent students joining us. We will be asking them some questions that will focus on our semester theme of high touch and high tech. While we use a variety of tech tools in our jobs as online instructors, we also want to make sure that we're helping our online students to connect with them, to help them, and to lift them up both in their educational pursuits and spiritually. We will start with an opening prayer from Heather Carter, an instructor manager here at the home office, after which we will cover a brief explanation for how this event will run. Heather?
Dearest Father in heaven, we are so grateful for the opportunity to gather together amidst the miracles of technology and across great distances, to be able to feel like a community of BYU-Idaho learners. We're grateful for the miracles of thy gospel and thank thee for thy generosity in our lives. We pray that thy Spirit might be with us. Help us that as teachers and instructors we can learn how to better serve our students, and that technology will function properly. We pray that those here might be calm and have thy Spirit to be with them, and that things might be brought to our minds that can be relevant and of most use for the teachers in the BYU-Idaho community. We thank thee so much for all that we've been given, and we pray these blessings upon us in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Heather. Before we begin, we just want to establish some house rules or expectations for how the evening will go. You have been submitting a number of questions over the last week or so, and we've compiled those questions to ask our student panel tonight. We will also be taking questions live in the chat box. You can find that just to the left of the streaming video you're watching. Feel free to submit any questions, and if you think a particular student would be a good person to ask that question based on what you learn about them tonight, feel free to direct the question to that student. Our students are going to be answering the questions rather quickly, and so we want to be able to get through not only as many responses from all our different students tonight as we can, but we also want to try and get to as many questions as we can. So that is how the program will be proceeding. We'll be wrapping up the event at about 5 minutes to the top of the hour, allowing us to hear from multiple people, after which we will have Lynn Durchie give us our closing prayer. Before we begin, let's introduce the students we have joining us tonight. The first student is Hannah Mortley, who is joining us from Sydney, Australia. Hannah has completed Pathway and is in her first semester doing marriage and family studies. Hannah, go ahead and give a wave. Our second student is Wendy White, joining us from Boise, Idaho. Wendy has completed Pathway and is in her junior year of marriage and family studies. Wendy, go ahead. Our third student joining us is Kendi Chase from Bismarck, North Dakota. She's completed Pathway and is a sophomore studying public health. Go ahead and say hi, Kendi. Our fourth student is Cody Boren, who is from Melissa, Texas. He has graduated this year from BYU-Idaho and received a degree in business management. Cody. Our final guest this evening is Winona Benson, joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. She's a transfer student studying university studies with a communications minor. Winona? Awesome, thank you. And with those introductions out of the way, let's start with our first question.
Okay, happy Wednesday, everybody. The first question tonight is, what are some of the typical struggles that you've had in an online class? And the second part of that is, was your instructor aware of those struggles? So who would like to take that one? Winona, please.
So one of the struggles is definitely the internet access or just technology in general. I remember just the beginning of this semester, I think all of you know the hurricane and everything actually hit Atlanta, and then my power was out for more than it's almost a day and a half, 2 days, but my instructor has been really, really understanding, and then they offer to extend due days and just stay really on top of it. So I think that's one thing.
Thanks, Winona. It's important that we as instructors are close enough to our students to know what's really going on. Does anybody else have any other struggles that they've experienced that they would like to share, and if their instructor was aware of those? Kindy, thank you.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest ones for me is just the isolation that I feel as an online student. One thing that I really miss is just the face-to-face contact and having that interaction with other students where we can communicate together and learn from each other. I've done both, where I've been in a classroom setting and been in line and done online classes. And by far, I think that the online environment has that challenge where the students feel very much alone in the learning process.
Thank you, Kindy. Cody, did you have your hand raised as well? Thanks.
I did a couple times. So I really like what Kindy had noted. Feeling alone in the learning process is kind of a big deal. There are some classes that it lends very well to kind of a community effort with the students, but there's some material that really kind of demands more presence with the instructor. And so I had some instructors do really well with this, and they did it in different methods, whether it be email, video calls. There's a lot of different ways. There were some courses that we went through that we all felt kind of alone in the learning material. And the good thing is the students kind of rallied together and we were able to figure some things out. But a big need is to have the instructors be involved, again, in some of the more technical aspects of the classes. So that was a challenge in some of my classes.
Perfect. Thank you, Cody.
I really like what you said there too, Kendi and Cody. And some of your answers might lead into this next question. If you were an online instructor then teaching your own class, what one thing, if you had to pick one, would be your highest priority and why? I think they need a minute to think about it. Cody. Cody and then Wendy.
I think one element would be early and consistent communication opportunities for my students. I would have like an open student hour, office hour, where we could go over the material and walk through expectations, walk through the material, walk through these different elements and be available for that. Again, some of my classes, that worked really well for me.
Great thoughts. Thank you. Wendy, go ahead.
I think also for me is communication. I think it's really important that the students feel like the teachers know who they are. And so I think as a teacher, it would be really helpful to talk to each student individually when you give feedback, to give personal feedback. Just even sometimes hey, you're doing great email, or what can I do for you kind of thing goes a long way to help the students feel like they have somebody who's there to help them.
Thank you. Kendi, you also had your hand raised. What would you add to Wendy's answer there?
Do you know, I have two experiences that came to my mind. The first was, it actually happened last semester. One of my instructors gave me a random phone call, and it caught me so off guard. I'd never had anything like that happen before. But he called to get to know me personally and spent probably about 5 minutes just visiting with me. That meant so much. It helped me feel like he really cared about me. And so if I were an instructor, and just from my perspective, I would think that if I could make some personal contact with the students to help them know that I cared about them, it would help a lot. The other thing was I had an instructor hold an Adobe Classroom once a week. And in this classroom, he allowed us to interact with each other as students, not just with him. And I would want to do that as well. It was very beneficial.
Thank you so much. Was there anyone else, any other students that wanted to respond to that prompt? Okay, I know we're definitely hearing a theme of communication and community there.
Awesome. Really like those answers. Awesome coming in. This is one of my favorite questions we've got in, and I wanted to ask it before the others had a chance. What is the most annoying thing your online instructor does or doesn't do? As they're all thinking about it. Wendy, your hand was up first.
I think one thing is copy and pasted feedback. We know when it's not genuine feedback. Another thing that would be really helpful is clearer due dates. Sometimes we really have to go digging for when the due date for things is. If they could put that just in the announcements on the main page when things are due. I think I take 5 classes per semester and my due dates are all over the place. So sometimes when I have to dig for a due date, that's frustrating.
So you mentioned copy and pasted feedback is not very good. Are there times ever where it is kind of copy and pasted, you can tell, but it still provides good clarity? I'm just trying to understand better when maybe feedback becomes so bad or so good. Is there more detail you can give on that?
I get a lot of great job, and I thank you. But wait, is there something that I could do better? Is there something that I could change? I actually one time had a teacher give me a feedback that had somebody else's name on it. I don't even know what that was about, but I like it when the feedback says, here's what you did good and here's what you could improve on, because that's really what helps me.
Okay, so definitely avoiding the sort of great job, high five, simple feedback that doesn't really provide anything on how to improve or what you did well.
I have a good, can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
There, just what are the telltale signs of copy and paste feedback? Are there any telltale signs for you, like Cody? Cody had a response to that, I think.
I would say the telltale signs the telltale signs are when it's very general in nature, nothing specific to your work. So good job, those kind of things. I'm okay if they don't do feedback all the time, but every once in a while, maybe a quarter of the time, they come back and give me feedback on my material. I recognize that they've got a lot going on. I don't necessarily need that feedback on all, but having it intermittent would be great.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Did anyone else want to answer that question? Could we have Winona, and then we'll jump over to Hannah?
Well, I think that's kind of mean to say, but you say annoying, right? One thing would be the lack of communication or just not reply emails. I think that's one thing, or taking a long time to reply, because as online students, I think even instructors know that they are busy, or students are busy, they have work, or usually we only squeeze so limited time to do our schoolwork. So when we do communicate, we're hoping to get as fast as we can, or at least in 24 hours. But I have instructors that just never email us back. And I think that's really important as an online student to actually have feedback, especially if you ask for it. Does it make sense?
No, that makes good sense.
And to go off of that, before we get to Hannah, one of the things that we see that students dislike the most is when they don't respond quickly. If instructors will respond quickly, that's incredibly important. And there's a couple places to check that. There's emails, there's also instant messages, and then also questions and conversations discussion boards. Those are 3 places to keep in mind that students may be asking instructors questions.
Go ahead, Hannah.
Okay, so mine's just running off everybody else's. As an international student, we're usually a day ahead of everybody else. And I know particularly in Australia, some of the content is a little bit hard to understand, whether it's the language, how the questions are posed and things like that. So when the instructors are taking a long time to get back to you, we kind of get a bit stressed because it makes it so that we either don't understand what we're doing or it's taking us a long time to complete our work. And so I guess it's just that making sure that if there's a way that they can have notifications and when emails come through and they can email straight away when there's particular question answers to questions that are really needed or something like that.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for those very, very open and very honest answers to that. And I think we as instructors, we need to hear things like that so that we can improve what we're doing. So I appreciate that. So let's kind of change direction a little bit from the annoying stuff, and let's ask you a kind of a different question. Go ahead and tell us what have one of your instructors done for you that has made all the difference in the world for you? Wendy.
Yes. So I took a statistics class a couple semesters ago, and I'm terrible at math, and I was terrified of statistics. I was sure I was going to fail it, and I had an instructor who was so encouraging, and the whole semester was he just kept telling us, you can do this, you've got it, I can help you, whatever you need, and you could email him, and he'd send an email right back with an enthusiastic reply. He really made a huge difference that semester in making us feel like we were capable, we could do it, and if we had a problem, he was right on it. And I ended up getting an A in the class and never thought I could pass statistics, so that made a huge difference to me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Wendy. Has anybody else had something where the instructor has done something that's just made all the difference for you in a class? Yeah, Cody.
Yeah, so very similar. Actually, the same class was a statistics class, and they held a consistent, I guess, time frame where they would do a call. But they also, if I struggled with a specific problem, they made themselves available for 30 minutes to go over a problem and to walk through an Excel spreadsheet. And that was invaluable for me because just helping me wrap my head around the concepts, I wasn't necessarily where I needed to be with some of the elements. It didn't happen all the time, but he did do it a couple of times, and that made all the difference for me.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we can see how sometimes when instructors put a little bit more effort into reaching out with difficult concepts, how that really pays dividends for the students.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a question. How have instructors helped invite the spirit into their online classrooms? And specifically, if you have an experience that happened to you in your online class, we'd love to hear that. So we'll go with Hannah first. The rest of your thinking?
Yeah, one of the things that my instructors do, is one in particular, is he always, in the announcements, he adds like a Mormon message or some kind of spiritual message that goes with the subject that we're talking about. And something that happened for me was this particular message that he put on. I had an experience the week before, and it was a week where I hadn't gone over what the next week's subject was. And when he had posted that particular Mormon message, it actually was almost like an answer to something that I was searching from the week before. So yeah, those kinds of things have been invaluable to me as well. So.
Thank you, Hannah. I've heard of that happening multiple times, actually. I think, Kendi, did you also have an experience you wanted to share?
Yes, I did. One of the things that I really appreciate about the BYU-Idaho experience is that most of my teachers include some form of spiritual food. And like Hannah, I've had experiences where I've been very discouraged, wondering if I can continue just because of the load with everything. And there's been messages that my instructors have shared that have helped lift me over that moment of crisis and helped encourage me and help me feel the Spirit so that I could continue on this journey.
Thank you so
Can I
much.
ask Kendi a question?
Yes.
Kendi, can you think of a specific instance when an instructor did that to help us understand better what they did, specifically to help you have that spiritual moment? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
Yes, actually, I had one. It was probably 2 weeks ago. Oh, that's fine. I've got a lot of things going on in my life right now, and I really was at that point of feeling crushed. And I'm sorry, I get emotional over it, but I really started questioning if I should continue with my schooling. And that very week, my instructor had posted an article by President Hinckley that spoke of the importance of education and that nothing that we do comes easy. And I felt that the Lord was speaking directly to me, and it gave me that feeling of comfort and also just the grit that I needed to get through that moment and to get past that hurdle. And I'm so grateful for instructors who take the time to do those and to leave those type of messages.
It really helps us so much to know that as teachers.
Yeah.
To know that it makes a difference. And that, I think, sometimes gives us the encouragement that we need to go the extra mile.
Yeah, because sometimes you share stuff like that and you don't know if it's being received well or if it's just kind of drifting out there in the ether, unread by your students. So thank you for sharing that with us, Kendi.
Now, Winona did have her hand up on that one. Winona, did you want to share something for that as well?
Yeah, when I was listening to Kendi, I was thinking about a class that I took. I'm not trying to call out any instructor, but she was amazing. Like for the subject that we were going through, I feel like there's nothing spiritual about it. It's something really structured and critical, but I like that she shared her personal experience. I feel like we are taught about sharing our testimony. It's not just about the message, but it's about our own testimony. So when she shared her testimony, I feel like that makes it personal, and that makes all the difference.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Do we have time for Cody?
Go for it.
There's always time for Spirit.
There's
right?
always time for Cody.
Okay, Cody.
It's time for Cody.
One more answer to this question.
I appreciate that. Really quick is the best experiences are when the instructors applied what we were learning to a spiritual message. I had one instructor, or actually I had several instructors that used the announcement page to kind of go through the week, but then related a spiritual example or had a link to a conference talk that kind of went through some of the topics. And I was amazed at how often they tied together spiritual matters with things like statistics and things like accounting, which they did a great job. So
Perfect. Thanks, Cody. Now, so a question that we got from our audience is asked about discussion board activity and feedback. And so let's say an instructor is really busy one week and they're trying to do their best, and they have the option of doing a little bit more in the discussion boards or a little bit more on giving feedback. Out of those two, which would you prefer more often? Wendy. And then we'll have Kindy.
I think feedback. I think feedback is more personal. I really, really appreciate feedback on my assignments because especially in my classes, I'm a marriage and family studies major, and a lot of our assignments are very personal. We have to write about our own lives and things like that. And I appreciate when I have to kind of bare my soul that it's acknowledged. And I really do appreciate when they tell me what I did and didn't do so that I can do better. I think feedback is the most important thing.
Thank you, Wendy. And Kindy, how about you?
Well, mine is actually opposite of Wendy. Sorry, Wendy. I remember when I was taking the American Foundations class, I had an instructor who participated so much with our discussion boards. And what I loved about it was she actually helped me learn through that. She would question what I had posted, and she would put additional thoughts there that I had never even considered. And it was such an awesome experience for me, only because so often in the discussion boards, you know, I'm a little bit older than the traditional student. And so she helped me just have that depth that I have craved with the learning experience. And it was just so rewarding to have that with her.
Perfect.
I just have to say I
Go ahead.
love that because I think that most students don't have that experience because as instructors we tend to focus on feedback over discussion boards because maybe we don't know how to create that kind of experience, and then that kind of comes back to us because that is how you want a discussion board to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how so far we've had two differing opinions on what they like best. And I think the key thing that's similar in both of those is when the feedback is done really well or when the discussion board is done really well. And Cody, you had an answer on that too. So let's hear from Cody.
Sorry, real quick. I think it depends on also the subject matter. What really helped me and helped a lot of classes is I was able to go through the discussion board. I love the discussion board because then someone who already asked a question has that up, and I can go through there and see that discussion board post by the instructor. That was incredibly helpful on homework assignments and other elements. That was a big piece for me as well. I love the feedback, but in some situations, I very much like the discussion board. I can easily go in on my time and get that discussion board. A lot of times it resolves some of the questions right then and there. So I like that portion.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Cody. And I think that's a key thing that we can do to help save our students time so they're not struggling trying to get answers from us through other ways.
Awesome. Thank you. We had a question come in from the audience that I believe is a follow-up question for what we've received earlier. So students, what about when an instructor shares information about their personal life? Do you like that, or is it annoying if it doesn't fit? Did I see, Winona, did you have your hand up? Let's go Winona, and Wendy and Kendi, did you have yours up as well?
So I actually really like it because I feel like it makes it more personal. Like if you just even share, pictures of your family. Hey, I have, 4 children. This is what I majored in before, which school I went to. It makes it more personal to me that I know a little bit about my instructor, and then it's just feel like I know that person even though you don't really know them, if that makes sense.
Real quick, before we jump over to you, Wendy, Winona, would you be willing to just elaborate on why that matters so much that you feel that connection with your instructor? What changes for you in that situation?
I feel like if we don't know them, don't know anything about them, then you don't feel like even talking to the person, if that makes sense. Knowing them makes you feel more comfortable talking about your problem, makes you feel more comfortable when you're struggling, or if you have a question about the class, you feel like they're more a friend instead of someone that is going to judge you.
Awesome. Thank you. Wendy, would you be willing to answer that for us?
Yeah, I love personal experiences from teachers. I think a lot of times because this is online and we don't see a teacher in real life, it's sometimes easy as an online student to feel a little bit invisible, or that the teachers are a little bit invisible. There's kind of a disconnect there. And so I think when they share about themselves, it kind of makes them more real to us and makes them, to me, feel more approachable. Like Winona said, it kind of, having that relationship with them makes you feel like you're part of a team that's working together instead of just an invisible person in your computer that you don't, may or may not be real. It just makes them seem more real, more approachable. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you. We're kind of entering the middle of the semester right now. And I know when I teach classes, sometimes I make that extra effort in the beginning to build that connection. I share pictures of my family or I tell stories. And sometimes that kind of peters off towards the middle. Have you noticed your own instructors kind of not withdrawing intentionally, but maybe becoming less visible in that sort of way of expressing themselves?
I think there is more in the beginning. It depends on the instructor. Some do and some don't. Some give a introduction in the beginning and then don't say a lot after that. I've had others, again, because we're in marriage and family studies and a lot of what we do is very personal. We share a lot of our own personal experiences, and I've noticed a lot of my instructors for those classes will share theirs as well. But it kind of depends on the class and the teacher, I think.
So I think one thing that we can see from some of those answers is we try to emphasize for our instructors to try to not just type an answer into their computer, but to see the student behind it and to make that connection as well. And kind of along with those lines, can any of you, do any of you remember the names of your online instructors, or have you ever had a class where you didn't really even know the name of your instructor? And if so, can you pinpoint a reason why you did or did not remember their names? Yeah, Wendy.
I actually had to look one up today, and I feel bad when I do that. And it's not that I don't pay attention or care. I have 5 classes, and I'm now a year and a half into this or something, and I've had a lot of instructors. So sometimes I do have to look it up. And it's not that I don't care who they are, but I have a lot of classes and they go by fast. But I do care. I usually remember. Every now and then I have to look it up.
So we'll get Winona here in just a minute. Is there anything you can point to that makes some instructors' names stick out to you so that you remember them, and other things that may be happening that make it so you don't remember their names?
Yes, some of them put their name on the announcements every week. Like they'll sign their announcement at the bottom with their name on it. That really helps me. Some of them you don't see their name very often. You see it at the beginning of the semester, and then you don't really see their name anywhere. So that makes it harder to connect that. But there's some ones that send frequent emails. I'll remember those, and if they put their name at the bottom of their announcements, that stays with me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And Winona, let's have your response.
I feel like those that participate more, but basically being more involved, then I remember their names. For those that don't really show up or, email you back or just participate in general, then I don't really remember them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Personally, I think it's because we all go by brother and sister. It's like not distinguishing. That's just my own opinion.
I put my signature at the end of every announcement, so I know my students all know my names.
That's good.
I'm glad for
I
that.
don't share my first name. Maybe I don't know.
I shared it once.
I
And
won't
was
ask you
only
that.
known as that for
But
the rest of the semester.
I will ask you, of all the different types of feedback, we've kind of talked about feedback already, but of the types you receive. So you might get written feedback, you might get audio feedback, you might get a video screencast. Which is the most helpful? What have you found the most helpful? I'm going to go with Hannah.
I think it depends on what kind of a student you are. But for me personally, video or audio has been the best for me, only because I like to hear people's voices. I think you can tell a lot from people's voices. And yeah, it just, for me, it seems a lot more personal. And you can, like, just from the expressions in their voices, when they're expressing feedback on things that you've done really positively. And yeah, I've had the best experiences with feedback when they've either been video or audio.
Okay, thanks, Hannah. I believe that Kendi had an answer to that, and also Cody, so we'll kind of go in that order.
Yeah, I am similar to Hannah. There is something that I really like in regards to hearing the instructor speak directly to me. It doesn't have to be long, but we spend so much time reading that to read an email or a message that's written, it's burdensome to me. And so I really appreciate it when it's quick and I can hear it. One thought that I had in regards to what Hannah was saying, we're all different, and maybe instructors could ask the students, how would you prefer to receive feedback? And maybe try to respond to each one in the way that works best for them.
It's a great idea. Cody, what did you have to add to that?
So, sorry, but counterpoint here. For me, frankly, it is all about the feedback itself. So I'm not as bothered either way. If it's video, I had audio, and I had written. It didn't matter as long as I knew that it was specific to my work and helped me in my work. So when I knew that there was feedback coming in, I was eager, regardless if it was video, audio, or written. That's me, but I really liked what Kendi said in suggesting the instructor ask, hey, how best do you want to be, you want to receive feedback?
I like that too. This is like the first, I teach a English course, a foundational course. This is the first semester. I've kind of mixed it, like written feedback, but also created a video to put on it too. And I'm curious, a lot of people respond to the video, but I know we're not all audio learners, so I don't know if anyone else had anything to add to that, or Winona definitely has an answer to share.
I'm going to be the odd one here. I like written just because, well, I think it depends on subject, but for example, like one class, let's say more about communication, so I like point by point, so I can kind of check the list off for anything that I can improve on. But I also like live feedback. I have instructors that actually offer and ask us, hey, we have this time frame that, if you want to call me on the phone so we can talk about, your concerns and your assignment. And I really like that.
That's a type of feedback I hadn't thought about.
I had never heard that one before.
I like that.
What class was that for, Winona?
I'm going to be pointing it out. I really, really like my instructor for business law, Sister Hurley.
Ooh, shout out. Sister Hurley.
So a quick follow-up question to that feedback. So have you guys ever had difficulty finding your feedback? And if so, did any of your instructors ever do anything to kind of help you figure out where or when they were leaving feedback? Kendi.
So in the beginning, when I was first learning how to be an online student, I had no idea how to go about finding any sort of feedback. And I think probably the first couple of classes, if there were any messages left for me, I didn't see them because I didn't know where to look. That's something that I had to learn. And I honestly can't remember how I even came about learning that teachers were leaving me comments. But it might be beneficial, especially with the foundation classes, for the instructors just to give a quick little message as to where students can go to find the feedback that is being left for them.
All right, thank you.
Great recommendation.
Okay, well, I have a question, unless someone else wanted to answer Lynn's previous question a little more. Okay. My question regards how we instructors communicate with students, and I would really love to hear from everyone to get everyone's opinion on this one. How often do you read announcements and emails from your online instructors? And what about these announcements was or was not useful to you? All right, we'll have Hannah go first and then move to Wendy.
Yeah, I have email notifications on my phone. So, and I've got them hooked up to all of my classes so that when an email or an announcement comes up, then it comes onto my phone. And that's been really helpful, especially when there has been technical issues to do with the course or to do with assignments. And our instructor has sent an updated email letting us know that please make sure you check the announcements page or the contents page, this has been fixed, or something like that. And to do with feedback as well, sometimes they'll post an email and it will come up on my notifications as well, so that I'm aware of it and I can go onto iLearn and check, or something like that. So
awesome, thank you. Wendy?
I'm the same. I read everything. I appreciate any information I can get from instructors. I have, like she said, I have my instructors all on my VIP list on my phone. So if I get an email, it pops up immediately like a text message. So I see everything and read it right away. As far as announcements go, I really, really, really appreciate it when teachers give kind of a weekly overview at the beginning of the week. Here's exactly what's due and when it's due. Monday mornings, I take my weekly planner and write down when everything's due for the week and schedule it out. If they put that in the announcements and I can just go to the announcements and see exactly what's due and when it's due for the week, that saves me so much time and I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. I saw you nodding your head, Cody. Is that something you also felt strongly about as well? What about the announcements was or was not useful to you?
Yeah, so I agree, and I would echo what they all said with the email. One thing that I found helpful is that some instructors would do the announcements at the beginning of the week, but then they would also email those announcements out. So I could have that with me at all times. You know, I would go into the site and read the announcement side, but then having the email was a good way for me to go back in and track that out. So the email was key for me, but then also having it on the announcements page. So just having consistency for me throughout the deal with emails was key.
Okay, it's good to know. Thank you. Kendi, Winona? Who wants to jump in first? Kendi, please, let's hear from you.
Sure.
And we're coming to Winona.
I completely agree with everything that has been shared. I check my email every day, several times a day, just to make sure that I'm receiving the messages that are being delivered. One thing that I do appreciate also, in addition to what's been said, is when we have tests that are coming up, I really appreciate it when teachers will kind of point out specific areas that we should focus on with our studies, things that can help us be prepared for the test.
Awesome. So prepping your students ahead of time for especially big tests and big papers, that's probably pretty important for us to remember. Winona, do you have something you'd like to add about it?
Sure. So you're asking about helpful or not helpful in announcement. I would say the announcement that doesn't come early, I'll be honest, I don't always read it. I'm with Wendy. I also take 5 classes a semester with, you know, kids and responsibilities and stuff. So I also read my announcement through emails. And then if they don't come early enough, then I already finished like half the homework. Then it's almost like pointless, if that makes sense. But other than that, I feel like announcement is the key communication part for the class.
You mentioned when they don't come early enough. When's too late for you?
I think it's important to get that Monday, or even earlier. Some instructor will come in the Saturday before and then have the announcement or like ready to go. But if you come Tuesday or even Wednesday that I've seen instructor done it before, it's too late for me.
If you could pick which day it would come on, Monday or Saturday, which one would you ask for?
Definitely Saturday.
Okay, just checking.
I think it's great to know that, because instructors have asked us this in the past or said, hey, I've put it in the class, I'm just repeating myself by putting it in the email too. So it's really great to know that for a lot of you, it's simple to have it there, that you're not repeating yourself if you're putting it both places as an instructor, but that it's still valuable.
Awesome.
Just wanted to.
Oh, that's a good point. There's a couple follow-up questions for this one. Do you want to split?
No, you go ahead.
All right, I get to take them. What is the most effective type of media that we can share with you when we do things like announcements? Instructors span things from text to video to hyperlinks out to videos. What's been the most useful for you for us to put in our announcements? Cody.
All right, so the thing that helped me the most on one of my classes, and I'm in a fog as to who this was, but it was video. They did a video deal, and it was just a video link, and I forget the technology used, but it was fabulous. Went through the announcements, the assignments, the week, what we wanted to accomplish. He even had some spiritual thoughts in there. I loved it. And he also tied in, he applied, some elements and some principles, sometimes with news and related stuff. I loved his videos. I really looked forward to them.
Awesome. I saw someone else's hand. Who was that? Winona? And then Hannah.
I think, so at first I was a little skeptical about it, but I have a few classes that start using Facebook group. And I actually really like it because it's something that we check often, especially if I have more than one group, then I just check Facebook is all there. And then I can pin the group to top so I can just click, get access to the group pretty easily. And that is another thing you can get notification for is, you just pop up, it's right on your phone when you get the announcement or even urgent message. I have instructor that, post in the Facebook group and I feel like that's a little faster to get respond to from them because they also check it more often.
Are you saying you spend all your time on Facebook, Winona? Sorry.
It seems like it would be useful to relate everything that you've been saying to feedback as well. So when is feedback too late to be useful? What are the particular things that are most useful to share in feedback?
Anyone want to answer that one? And then we can jump back to our other two questions. Maybe repeat the question one more time. Sorry.
So kind of the same questions you've been answering, but regarding assignment feedback. When is assignment feedback too late to be useful? And also what's the type of things instructors say in feedback that's the most useful or not useful? The content that's in the feedback, what's useful or not useful? Winona.
I really enjoy I'm always ahead most of the time, and I really enjoy when my instructor kind of grade it as soon as they can. And I think it's kind of beneficial for them too if I'm early enough so they can maybe grade me first and then, some other students. But definitely not a whole week after because I have assignments that just never graded for a week or two, and then when the next maybe project comes on and then it's the same kind of project from the first one but I never get any feedback, then I don't know what I'm doing right or wrong. So I would say within a week would be best, but obviously as soon as they can.
So we will get back to you, Hannah, about the announcement and the media types. But that brings up, I like how you mentioned how it's important to get grading back quickly. For the rest of you, how soon do you like to get your feedback, and how soon do you like to get your grading? And is there ever a time when it frustrates, like about what length of time does it start to frustrate you that you don't get a grade back?
Hannah wanted to answer that one too.
Wendy, go ahead.
It depends on the assignment. There's some assignments where we've moved on to something else, and it's fine. I don't mind if there's a delay. If there's something that's an ongoing project, or I had one class where we had to write papers really frequently, and if I have to write the next paper before I got feedback on the previous paper, it doesn't help me. I don't know if I'm doing it right or if I'm doing it wrong. That gets frustrating for me. I don't want to do the next one until I know that I did the last one right, if that makes sense. But if it's just a random assignment, it actually doesn't bother me that much if there's a delay. Only if it's something that could help me in another assignment.
Thank you, Wendy. And Hannah, did you have a few comments?
Yeah, just like Wendy and like Winona, I usually have my assignments done earlier rather than later. And one of my instructors, he's actually very good at having quick feedback, and I think it's because I get it in quickly, and he gives it back quickly as well. And so that's been really helpful. And like Wendy, in one of the classes that I'm doing today, we do have to do a few papers, and if one paper has been done and I don't get any feedback when the other one's due, then it's almost kind of pointless, and I'm wondering, oh, well, what did I do right on the other one, or what did I do wrong that I can improve on to get a better grade with this one? But not knowing that I didn't, what the grade was or what I could do right kind of is a bit frustrating, because then you're still going off of what you were doing before.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Let's jump back real quick to the previous question so Hannah can have a chance to answer that. And I'll just repeat it one more time. What is the most effective type of media that we can share with you in our announcements?
Okay, so I had a really awesome instructor when I was doing the pathway program, and her name was Sister Walker, and it was during the math class, and I think it was Wendy said before, I was like her, I hated math and I was really scared about doing it. But she would, during her announcements, she would post a video of her actually doing the assignment. So I don't know how she did it, whether it was a screencast or whether she videotaped it with her phone or whatever, but she had it actually in the announcements, so that when we were doing the assignment, we could go back to the announcements and we could play the video, so we could actually see her doing the assignment, doing whether it was an Excel spreadsheet or something else. And then she also included links to some YouTube videos and things like that that helped us with the problem that was on that week, and I found that really, really helpful.
So, sorry, one last question, I promise, and then I'll stop talking. Just for videos, what's a good length for us instructors to make our videos? Because I know sometimes we make very long videos, and some students complain that they don't watch till the end. What's a good rule of thumb for us to follow? Hannah.
I think probably about 5 minutes. If it was any longer than 10 minutes, I probably wouldn't watch it. And I think it depends on what the video is on, and depending on what the question is or whatever they're doing the video on. So I think for me, between 5 to 10 minutes would probably be an okay amount of time.
So what's a 10-minute video?
Probably a really, really hard math question or something like that.
Wendy, I saw you raise your hand real quick. Do you want to answer that as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a psychology class this semester, and she's doing a really great job of videos. I don't really care what the length is, as long as the content is useful. Hers are a little bit longer, and I don't mind it, because some of the stuff she puts in it, she'll go over what's in the chapter for the week, and we have a test every week, and she'll sometimes, as she's going over the information, she'll say, that's really important to know, and those things show up in the test. She's kind of I like that. I'll watch a long video if it's got stuff like that, because it really does help me. So it's more content than length. If there's good content in it, I'll watch it no matter how long it is. If they're just talking about stuff, shorter is better.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me in my questions.
All right. Well, we're getting close to the end. Do we have time for one more?
We have time for one last question.
I think hopefully the instructors who are watching this, they've gotten to know you five fantastic students a little bit, and hopefully the different perspectives you've given will help them in their own classes. What's one thing that one piece of advice you'd like to give to all of your online instructors as we close? Kindy, and then we'll go with Cody.
I'm grateful that I have this chance just to express gratitude for what you're doing. And my advice to you would be to know that what you're doing matters. And I've been thinking a lot about how you're sacrificing to help us reach goals and to gain an education. And so my counsel would be just to know that what you're doing matters in the lives of the people who are involved in this program.
Thank you, Kindy. Cody?
I would also second that. I'm amazed at the spiritual application, and thank the instructors who the lion's share have really applied the spiritual aspect. So two points is connect with your students and apply the subject matter as much as possible in a spiritual matter and in our time scenario. So if there's things going on in the media, things going on in the world, apply the subject matter there as well as the spiritual side. That was invaluable for me, and I treasure my experience at BYU-Idaho, and very much thank everybody here for all the effort that they put into it. So thank you.
Awesome. So building relevance in the classroom.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. Hannah, you had a comment.
Yes, so pathways and studying at BYU is relatively new here in Australia, and it's when I started Pathway, we were the biggest group. We ended up being the biggest group of pathways that they had so far. There was over 50 of us in the group, and it's been a really awesome experience. When I joined, I was actually just about to sign myself up for a $100,000 debt to do a university degree over here. And it was actually my Thermomix consultant who was dropping over my Thermomix that happened to be my ward, who was doing pathways, and she spoke to me about doing pathways. And so I had 24 hours in which to make the decision to do pathways. And so I prayed about it, and I haven't looked back since, and I'm now able to do my second degree, but do it with BYU. And it's been a dream for me to study through BYU since I was about 16 years old. And so it's really amazing that I now have the opportunity to become a BYU graduate almost, I won't say how many years later. Yeah, so I'm really grateful for the instructors, and because I know they're busy, they've got other jobs, they're doing other work. So I'm really grateful for the time that they put into helping us as students, and I know that this is still a new thing for them as well. And I think, like Cody, I think the advice that I would give to them would be to get to know the students, and like what we've said before, get to know what kind of feedback they are, what kind of learners they are, just to make this experience the best for them as well, and not just for themselves. So how the content applies to their students and their students personally. So
we're gonna have to start to wrap it up.
I just want to say thank you to the students. It's so good to have this feedback.
And for you 5 people, the instructors in the chat said they want us to thank you as students for giving your time and helping us get a better perspective tonight.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate the time that both the students who have joined us tonight, Hannah, Wendy, Kendi, Cody, Winona, thank you so much for your time. We're grateful for you online instructors who have participated at home with us. Also those who are going to be watching this recording later. Thank you for spending the time to learn a little bit more about how to connect with your students, what our students are experiencing, and how we can help them better as online instructors. We hope that you'll take what you learned tonight and any feelings that you may have received, promptings from the Spirit about what you can do in your own classrooms that you can improve your facilitation of your classroom better. We're going to turn the time over to Lynn Durchie now to give us a closing prayer.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this time that we have had with these fantastic students and the chance that we've had to communicate with them. And we ask Thee to please bless the students who are attending BYU-Idaho and Pathways programs, and also to please bless the instructors who are sacrificing so much to help them. We ask Thee to please bless the instructors that they'll be able to have, they'll be able to follow the Spirit as they work with students, and also that they'll be able to have the time that they need to take care of their families and their other responsibilities in their lives, but also that they'll be able to have the time that they need in order to reach these students. We also ask Thee to please bless all of our students, that as they are successful, we can celebrate with them, and as they struggle, that we can be there for them and provide them encouragement. Please bless all of us to keep in mind the importance of this work and to always keep evermost in our minds that the things that we are doing are things that ultimately are meant to bring the light of the gospel to these students and to people around the world. Please help us to always remember the importance of the Savior in our lives. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.